God bless you. I'm Dr. David J. Rogers, and this is Rivers Edge Today. We have back with us Vi Moon, and if you've been watching these episodes, what a tremendous opportunity, and God has been just doing some tremendous things in your life and with your life.
Yeah.
I'm impressed with what God is able to do. All that God requires is willingness. I remember talking to the Lord, and He just gave me this revelation. If you keep choosing me, I'll keep choosing you. And that's really what you've been doing. Vi, thank you so much for being a part of our program. Now, one of the things that we've kind of talked about and indicated earlier episodes is how you're part of a prison ministry.
Yes.
And then how the Lord just recently has opened that up to you. Why don't you open that up and unpack that and just tell everyone what God is doing with that and some of the testimonies of what God is doing.
Yeah, that's incredible. I have two friends doing time right now, currently incarcerated. One of them is part of this church, my brother Carlos McCall. And I would talk to him from time to time, and they would say, man, they would give me ideas about, man, we can get you inside. And I went to a conference a couple of years ago in Tennessee with the Extreme Tour. And there was a gentleman who used to be a mainstream artist, if you will, and he has this ministry called Send Musicians to Prison. So that planted an idea. The following year, me and my teams decided, hey, we need to get in here. So we tried to pull it on our resources. Doors were closed, doors were closed, doors were closed. Finally, I said, guys, let's back up. Let's give that to Jesus. Let's keep doing what we're doing and let him open the door. About 6 months later, I do a concert here for the church here at Rivers Edge. And one of the members here knew one of the directors of Prison Fellowship here in Montgomery. And I expressed that I wanted to get in prison ministry. And one of his artists in Prison Fellowship had currently got signed, so he lost an artist. He was in need of an artist quick.
Yeah.
And that young lady told him about me, and he met with me, came down, and he was like, man, can you perform next week at a maximum correctional? And that was my first one in Donaldson Correctional Facility. And about 200 guys, and it was phenomenal. And it's been off to the races ever since. That was last December. And man, some of the testimonies inside, I mean, where do I start? I'll tell you this one. I shared this one yesterday at a prison I just did. I have a song called Get It Together. And it's basically saying, when sometimes you get caught up in your feelings and you forget that you've been forgiven and your feelings hinder your faith. So get out of your feelings and get into your faith and get it together. Well, long story short, I do that song and the guy comes up to me. This is in Georgia, a facility in Georgia. He comes up to me, he said, look, man, nobody knows this, but I've been thinking about committing suicide. I'm just not strong enough to do it yet. So I've been intentionally building my strength to commit suicide. Like that's been an exercise he's been doing. He says, but now I got something to combat that. Whenever I feel those urges coming up, I just tell myself, get it together. I'm forgiven. He died for me. Get it together. I mean, that just floored me. And you're humbled to hear stuff like that. All glory goes to Jesus. So yeah, man, Prison Fellowship is the largest prison ministry in the country. They do what they call Hope events across all 50 states. And what they'll do is they'll bring in the artists, and they'll have their artists do about a 50-minute set to draw in. Sometimes it's with general pop. Sometimes it's in the chapel, whatever the warden will allow. But to draw in, the crowds of the guys and to pique their interest. And then they have ministers, most of them formerly incarcerated themselves, who were exonerated by a miracle from Jesus, to come in and preach a word to them. Or sometimes they even have the artists preach a word, which I've done as well. So between Alabama, Georgia, and Florida, I think I've done about 20 Hope events since December, and they're still coming in. So that's a blessing. It's rewarding. I also teach a weekly class in Bullitt County Correctional, helping guys to make that transition from being on the inside to being out. So it's practical matters. You're dealing with budgeting, family, reconciling with your mistakes, reconciling with people. and how to manage your emotions, but we bring a spiritual perspective to it. So that's very rewarding weekly, and it also eases the tension for me when I'm going into different prisons. I already have a familiarity with it, so it's been extremely rewarding for me, and I think for the guys on the inside as well.
Now, a lot of people who might want to be more involved in ministry are a little nervous about going into a correctional facility.
Yeah.
Kind of touch on some of the steps that you needed to do to do that.
Right, sure. So with Prison Fellowship, they take you through a training course. They do extensive background checks, and they lay it out there for you. I mean, there's disclaimers, there's things. Hey, you are taking a risk going behind this wall. I think ultimately for the individual, you just need to know that you're called.
Yeah.
And if you hear that story I told, when we was trying to do it, it didn't happen. But we felt like we needed to do it, but it wasn't we had to wait on Jesus. We had to wait on the Lord. And when he opens the door, it builds that sense of confidence in him that even though I'm nervous, because I was super nervous my first one. I'm going into a max camp, maximum security camp. This is my first one, and I only had a few days to prepare. And by the grace of God, Dave, remember I told you, focusing on intimacy with him and building quality content. I had enough content to fill what they needed because they needed a 50-minute set. If I was busy trying to get, build my audience, but not busy building the content, I wouldn't be able to fill that void.
Right.
I was able to fill that void because I had enough content. And by his grace, I believe quality content from the heart, from the spirit that really resonated with him. And so just doing it his way. But they do take you through courses and training procedures before you go in. But just know that you're called, man. Wait on Jesus. Hear from him. Let other people confirm that. Let him confirm that. Let him open the door. So that would be my primary message to individuals out there.
And even if you're not called to prison ministry, you as any individual, they can always find out who is involved in prison ministry and what are their needs, because there's always something that the men and women on the inside that they're needing and they're lacking, and being able to support them. And so that's a good thing. Now, but we have about a minute left. I do want to touch on one thing. You have a new album coming out.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell us about that really quickly.
Yeah, it's called Don't Worry. And this album is very special. It's very vulnerable. I haven't been this vulnerable since I've done in the gospel space. Usually it's more of the upsides of the faith. This one, I'm telling you, man, I don't always get it right. I drop the ball sometimes. But I think, what did Paul say? What did Jesus say to Paul? My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. And I think there's a lot of people experiencing that now. There's a lot of people struggling with their faith now. There's a lot of people, yes, we need him, but where do I fit in this? I'm not perfect and all that. Well, neither am I. But he died. He was perfect and he switched places with us. He died. His grace is sufficient for you. So hopefully by you hearing my vulnerabilities, my shortcomings, but me still leaning on him, that'll help the listener with theirs. At the end of the day, it's about him.
And when do you have a release date for that?
Man, hopefully September.
September.
Yes.
September 23. Thank you for joining with us on Rivers Edge Today. We've been with Vi Moon.